Welcome back to Sneaker Impact News. My name is Bryan the Botanist, and today I have a very special interview with Kiera Smalls, the Executive Director of the Running Industry Diversity Coalition. Kiera is a prominent community builder and strategic innovator based out of Philadelphia, known for her consistent ability to connect resources and opportunities to those who need them the most. Her impactful work spans several sectors, including technology, entrepreneurship, transportation, health, and fitness. Currently, as the first executive director of the Running Industry Diversity Coalition, Kiera spearheads initiatives that unite the running industry to improve the inclusion, visibility, and access for Black, Indigenous, and other people of color. She also serves as a judge for Johnson & Johnson's Health Equity Innovation Challenge, underlining her commitment to fostering equitable health solutions. Kiera reminds us that the key ingredient to being a true steward of success is paying it forward. She believes that voices from all communities deserve a seat at the table, even if that means building a bigger table. Kiera, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing really good. How are you?
I'm awesome. I'm excited to be here and get to know you today. Where are you joining us from?
Thank you, Brian. I'm so excited to be here and talk with you. I am based in the great city of Philadelphia.
I love Philadelphia. I once ran a half marathon, the rock and roll back in 2015 and 17 there, the city of
Wait,
brotherly and sisterly love.
yeah.
So today we're going to get to know you and your story and the journey that you've gone on as a runner and your work with diversity, equity, and inclusion. Catch us up with what's been going on lately. And we're going to be hanging out next week together at the Run Summit in St. Louis.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I am packing right now to get ready for that RIA summit in St. Louis. I'm looking forward to it. But these days, leading the RIDC, we have our hands in a lot of things right now. We are currently in the middle of accepting applications for a new program called Run the Block. So, Run the Block is our initiative to expand ownership, Black ownership in the running industry. So, we're awarding $200,000 grant and dedicated mentorship to a team that will open up a retail running store in the US in spring, summer 2025. So, between that program and some other employment initiatives we have going on, we keep ourselves busy as it relates to
So is the Running Industry Diversity Coalition, is that a nonprofit? How is that structured? And how many people are
running.
helping right now?
So we have different subgroups that help us just have people thinking, collaborating, and working towards our mission. And so the mission
Okay.
of the RIDC is to unite the running industry to improve the inclusion, visibility, and access for Black, Indigenous, and other people of color. RIDC was started in 2020 after the murder of Ahmaud Arbery and the conversations and reckoning that happened in this country. And so different industry leaders came together to say, what can we do in our industry to work towards racial justice? And so these were leaders from the retail space, which I know you work with a lot of them, from the brands, from the race events, and from the run clubs. And these individuals came together to create the RIDC. And that's why we have coalition in our name, because it's not just about us as a 501c3 nonprofit doing this work. It's about everyone in this industry coming together in service of that mission.
Wow, that is so powerful. Your origin story, which the whole nation has been impacted by and shaped by, and as a runner in the running industry, how important it is to get more representation. I know last week Harry said there's only 4 or so stores in the US with Black ownership. So is that part of the Run the Block program, is to help get more Black business owners for running? And that's what the grant, what you just mentioned, right?
Correct. So Harry,
Okay.
yes, he's talking about that we can count offhand how many retail run specialty stores exist that are owned majority owned by a BIPOC person or Black person. And so Run the Block is our effort to increase that.
Okay. Perfect. So how do people get involved? Is
So
it
right so for the pilot program, applications are open through May 15th.
okay?
Then we have our selection committee. They'll be ready to go through the applications all summer. We'll have a series of interviews with the finalists, and then we will select the awardee in the early fall. And
Okay.
then we will spend however the next 8 months towards that opening in the spring.
Like mentoring and supporting them through the process too?
Absolutely. They get a mentor. I would say the mentoring and the network that we provide them is equally, if not more important than the
Wow.
dollars that we give them. We have a group of people ready to embrace that finalist. And so
Wow.
have questions or concerns around lease negotiations, finding the right place to open the store, how to get their customers and retain their customers, any
Mhm.
legal implications. We have all of those resources
Wow.
ready for them.
Sure. There's a lot to think about when you open a running store, and it's just like a restaurant. It could not stay open if it's not done correctly. And there's best practices, there's experience, there's the leadership, and there's the team that needs to be around someone so that they can be successful in an organization. So that's so incredible. You guys have thought this out so well. So the Run the Block program, which is a grant,
Yep.
and it's $100,000. Is that correct? I
$200,000
keep getting it wrong.
and they
200,000. Wow. I
50,000
keep
last
Oh my gosh, 2 weeks in a row I got it wrong,
few
but that's a
but
huge
this has
amount of
never
money. It
been
just
done
blows my
before.
mind.
This has
Yeah,
never been done before, and so we're helping
real
normalize this opportunity to help
uh-huh.
invest in entrepreneurs, and you asked where you can find this information, runningdiversity.com/run the block.
So that's an incredible program. That alone right there is just really amazing story, but there's so much more to talk about. We've been following each other on Instagram for a little while now. Let's talk about the Boston Marathon. I saw that you were there last week, and I thought it was really powerful how you shared your perspective. Can you tell us more about the BIPOC perspective and how RIDC got involved with the Boston Marathon this year?
Yeah, so the RDC has attended the Boston Marathon weekend for the last couple of years.
Okay.
And this year we wanted to do something different. We wanted to do a Boston Marathon weekend through the RIDC lens. Because we are a US based organization, we have met so many people across the country, so many groups, so many store owners, and so many run clubs. And so when we started learning about the different events leading up to the race, it was so many from a lot of BIPOC people in the RADC community. What an incredible opportunity for us to highlight this great race that we all go to Boston for and the incredible activities leading up to. And so that's why we said, here all the Boston Marathon through the RADC lens.
So
And
the expo and many different events, like how tell us about some of the events throughout the weekend because the marathon's on Monday. For those that don't know, Patriots
the
Day, which is a
marathon is
Monday.
on Monday, and we were
Mhm.
going from event to event to event from Thursday to Monday. And
Thursday
so
and
there
Monday.
was a fantastic indigenous panel in the expo with some community groups like Rising Hearts and Native Women Running. And then there was the 26 Point True. So this is a Boston marathon as well that goes through many Black and brown neighborhoods in Boston. That's hosted
Okay.
by pioneers. And then there were a series of panels. There were a series of pop-ups and activities within the brands on Newberry Street. And so there was just a handful of things happening that we don't think would get highlighted in other media efforts, and so we wanted to make sure that they were highlighted. In fact, we were at one event editing in real time so that we can share with our community in real time, and the someone from the BAA saw that and gave the RADC a media pass for Monday's
Uh,
race. And so then I had our videographer and photographer, he went there and he was able to be amongst the media, and that was an incredible opportunity for the REDC as well to be at that finish line. I will add that he shared, Kiera, this is great. This is his first time seeing the race from this lens. He was like, but out of 50 to 60 media people, he was the only visible person of color. And so when we
wow.
felt exactly like what REDC is here to do is to create more opportunities and more visibility.
Absolutely. That's really powerful. I've done a couple of Boston marathons, about 9 over the years, and I
Wow.
didn't get to go this year, but I recently had ankle surgery, but I'm going next year. So I will be
Okay.
there, I have family in Boston. I've done Okay, Kiera, from the Boston Marathon, I want to rewind and go back to your upbringing. Tell us about your youth and when you started running, and did you grow up in Philadelphia? Tell us about your family.
I did grow up in Philadelphia. I'm a very proud Philadelphia native. and hoping the Sixers win tonight. So I grew up in a loving household, and I love to share that I am Geneva Josie's and Joe Rose's granddaughter. And I have one sibling, older sibling, and I have, we'll call it god sister as well, and two nephews who think the world of me, and I think the world of them. As far as running, I was not a runner. I was a kid with a big body and had asthma, and I was always in the hospital for asthma attacks, and so I had no desire to do any type of movement that would make my lungs feel like how they feel when I have asthma attacks. And so then over the years towards, let's say, fast track to college time, where there's all these 5Ks and you're fundraising for something on campus. And so a friend of mine said, "Hey, let's do this 5K." I can't even tell you what I ran in. I probably wasn't good or intentional,
Yeah.
but I
Now
ran
it's not,
some
right?
sneakers and some, like a whole sweatsuit attire. I don't know. Now knowing what I know now. But I finished it and I went, and I say that because I had so many hospital visits with my asthma. And so to then do this run and go, "You're here. You're still here." I say, "Oh my goodness, maybe this is not as much as a barrier as I thought it was or as it was before." And so then I started running a little more. And then a friend of mine said, "Do you want to do a half marathon?" And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Like, okay, 3 miles is fine. What's in between the 5K and the half?" But I signed up for the half marathon, finished it, and I didn't say, "Oh, I didn't die," but I said, "Oh, asthma didn't trigger." Like, I wasn't wheezing, I was breathing fine. And so then I learned more about training, being able to have a training plan, and it helps you with your pacing and your breathing and nutrition tied to it. And then couple years later, the same friend that I ran the half marathon with, she said, "Hey, let's create a run club in our city." And I was at the time doing more strength training. And I was like, "No, we did the half. I'm okay. I don't need to get all into this running game here." So she launched it and they ran past. I was hosting a workout. They ran past. We all took a break. And I was like, wow, look at this community. Look at us reaching our goals. This is something I can get behind and see what it means to build a run club. And over the years, we would get anywhere up to 80 women running with us on a Wednesday evening, running through different neighborhoods in Philadelphia. And that inspired me to run my first marathon. So I
Wow.
ran the New Jersey Marathon. I tell you, Brian, I Googled what's the flattest marathon courses in the US, and New Jersey and Chicago
Yeah.
came up. And I was like, "Oh, I
Yep.
can take the train to Jersey."
That's
But
cool.
I did it. It was a torrential downpour. I slipped at mile
Wow.
20, but there was this older Black woman volunteer, and all I hear is, "Are you okay, baby?" I got
Wow.
in, finished the race, and I've been running ever since.
Wow. And after you did one, you knew you could just keep doing it. Is it a matter of just building up and just not letting whether it's social pressure or your own mind telling you you can't do this? Was it easy for you to train up for a marathon, or was it something that you did a couple halves? And also, I know the first one, and I know for me too, it was just about finishing. And that's what it's all about, is the strength of the spirit. But yeah, tell us about your journey as a little bit as a runner, what type of support you've gotten. Was your family cheering you along the way, and your running clubs?
I would say this is where it gets probably like a little bit more nuanced and really specific to different runners. I have some running friends who go, "It's all mental." I have some running friends who go, "No, it's all physical." And for
Hmm.
me, it's both. And growing up, I didn't see people running in my neighborhood. My family certainly wasn't talking about running. They were talking about, how do we make ends meet? How do we survive? What do we need to do here to sustain ourselves and our families? And then I get to college, and that's when the access and exposure happens for me. We know that doesn't happen for everyone, but that's when the exposure happened for me. And then I start running, and there was some trial and error. Okay, let me slow down because I feel myself really getting hype. I don't know what this is, but let me kind of slow down. So some of that I was just trial and error. And then after the half marathon, I started going to our local retail shops, Philadelphia Runner, and a friend of mine started working there. So then I started learning about getting a gait analysis, and I started seeing the different run clubs that exist. And then so again, this access has given me new language, new
Hmm.
ways to approach running, new ways to take it not just from this thing I do for leisure, but like something I can actually be serious about.
Mm.
I think that the community and the resources that I was exposed to helped me go, okay, this is what I need in order to reach this goal. And then when I'm in the midst of, let's say when I started training for the marathon, I, you take lessons learned. Okay, the half marathon was fine, but like, how do I sustain more, like, double that distance? I'm gonna need to think about what I'm gonna be eating, when I gotta go to bed, like all these different things. And so then I sought those answers out. And again, I had friends from either the retail stores or the run clubs because either they've done it or they knew someone that could help. So I had a coach, so I had a training plan. I also worked with a registered dietitian. I've been I was vegan for maybe 14 years. Now I'm probably like 80% plant-based now these days, but I was vegan, so I learned, oh my goodness, I have vitamin D deficiency. I have all these things. So that led me to, okay, go seek out those resources. And thankfully they were available and accessible for me. So the last thing I'll add here is when when I got to the marathon distance, I it took a lot out of me. Okay? It takes a lot out of you. And so I have not done that distance since it was 2016. But what I've done is but what that experience and the journey leading up to it has done for me, it's exposed me to things like trail running. I love going onto the trails. I love getting more people to just start their 1 mile. Like, let's just get to 1 mile. And so for me, running has become this thing that I was afraid of to now this thing I want everybody to learn about and at least try out once.
Wow. So exploring the running world and being an ambassador for the BIPOC community, which is what I wanted to get into next. Tell us about your feature in Runner's World and how much of an impact that made for the BIPOC community.
Yeah, I first when I became the first executive director of the RIDC, there was press, there was Runner's World, and some other platform. And I just remember seeing, and when we first announced it on RIDC, like, hey, here's our first executive director. I saw a lot of people get really excited. A lot of people, they were sharing messages either in the comments or messaging me directly. Some of those who were people of color, they just, "Hey, welcome. We're excited you're here. We're
Yeah.
excited to see you do this work, and we wanna support you, and we'll stay involved and also look out for the resources that will be available to us." And then over this, I just celebrated 2 years at the helm and was recently in Runner's World again for Run the Block. And the anecdotal conversations that I have with people, it's less about like me as an individual being in a Runner's World and just more about the visibility of these opportunities. The more we can get these opportunities like $200,000 in your
Mhm.
hand, and you don't have to have it all figured out in order to get it, the more we can amplify these messages to say, hey, we're working on creating some resources that haven't existed or you haven't been able to get access to. And so from the anecdotal conversations we have, they're just like, thank you for either creating these resources or amplifying them for us to see.
Wow. You're truly pioneering the industry.
We
It's
are.
like
We are.
who are some of the mentors you've had along the way that have supported and helped guide you in this journey?
For the RDC, it's every single board member, every single founding member, and every single board member. Again, whether it was the founder of a retail store that just retired after 40 years of service, or the activist, or the leader at a brand, our founding team and our board members, those are my mentors. Those, I look to them for guidance. They look to me for the direction. And together we're creating a lot of things that have not existed. And they're I trust them and their experience and they trust me. And it's just been amazing to see how the RIDC has been able to evolve since 2020. The conversations that happened around 2020 we're having very different conversations as a country right now in 2024, but our board, our team, we're all remaining steadfast in our strategic plan and our mission. So I look to them. Those are my mentors. There's some
Okay.
other people as well connected to some people in different areas of the industry, but also outside the industry. Because there is great work happening kind of adjacent to the industry. I think of
Mm,
Dr. Dwayne Edwards at Pencil and the
okay.
work that he is doing with design students, getting more students to become designers or get opportunities for their design work, just to name one. So I
Mhm.
could count a full list.
That's awesome. No, that's a great answer. What a time to get involved. It was needed for so long, and you were built for this. Your curiosity, passion, warmth, and eagerness. And I can see that you're a natural born leader, but you lead by having fun and having a big smile. This isn't something that has to be so serious. It can be fun.
It can be both. And
Yes.
I really appreciate what you said about, as I seem like I'm built for it. And I'm built for the work that we do because it's not about me. I want to help our organization, which in tandem helps our industry, make our sport better and make our sport a little bit better for us while we're here, but also the next generation. And so when I take that lens, we have to have the hard conversations. We have to lean into to them. We have to really face reality. We have to really make sure that we don't discredit people's lived experiences, but that we acknowledge lived experiences and understand that it may not be the same. Right? We don't have the same lived experiences, but I hear you on your experience. And I hear you,
Mm,
especially when it comes from marginalized people and marginalized groups.
yep.
And how this country got here in the first place, like how we got here in the first place. How do we make sure that we don't discredit or lose sight? And for that fuels me because again, I'm thinking about the RIDC as an educational nonprofit. We have we have dual purposes, right? One is to educate white people. So white individuals, let's talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. I love that you asked, hey, what does that acronym mean? I also spell out BIPOC. Here's what that means. A lot of people don't know. And we also know what's happening in terms of this conversation in this country around DEI. And for us, for that one dual in terms of educating white people, it's like, look, DEI, RIDC, you can look at it under the DEI lens, but what we do transcends DEI. So whether we call it that or not, the mission is still the same. We're
Mhm.
uniting the industry to improve the inclusion, visibility, and access for BIPOC. And then in terms of dual purpose, for the BIPOC folks that are here, we see them. We know we will go to their events. We will amplify their messaging and what they're doing because it may not get picked up in a runner's world or some other thing. But also, we're creating a sense of solidarity, community, mutual respect, and uplifting each other. And I'm built for this because connecting those resources, including power, that's going to help us really create impact right now and for generations to come.
Wow. I love the dual mission, and that's really cool because education is important. Before last week, I didn't know what BIPOC meant, but I have many Black, Indigenous, and people of color friends in Miami, and I work with many. But that conversation I'd never had before. I'm so focused as a runner or as a botanist or as a high school coach at a Jewish academy in different communities. It's so important that we get the BIPOC message, the DEI, as you said, diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Here's
So,
the thing too, it's a little bit nuanced. BIPOC, that term came from academia. So I caution on the like, let's get everybody to learn the term versus yes,
okay.
learn it. And no, at the bottom line, we are centering and uplifting people of color, marginalized groups. Some spaces use BIPOC. We are using BIPOC. Some people are new to that term, and that's okay. But the essence of it underneath is for every person of color in this country. What can we do to uplift, create access, improve visibility?
Perfect. I love how simple it can be. What are some of the challenges you've faced in the last 2 years as the executive director that you're working hard on?
Yeah, I love your last question. We ended with you had said, so it can be simple. It's like a lot of this can be simple, and a lot of it is hard for people to wrap their minds around in order for it to be simple.
It's simple, but not easy, right?
Yeah, simple,
Yeah.
yeah, but nuanced. I think for at least my 2 years with this organization, some of the challenges, it's not lost on me that there are some either people or businesses who don't want to see the RDC exist, or who don't want to, let's say, partner with the organization, or don't understand exactly what we're trying to do. We would be naive if we thought that
Mhm.
everyone was so excited about the RIDC and what we're here to do. So that's a challenge. And then we might have some people who are actively anti either DEI or what about me, or take things really personal. And that's a challenge. And then the last one, our work is national. And so our ability to really reach as many places and people and a service of our mission, that is a
Mhm.
challenge. The first two that I mentioned, in terms of people's either they want to work with RDC or they don't want to work with RDC, some of that it's a challenge, but it can be a distraction. And for some people, it could make you go, there's no progress being made, or they don't get it, so then no one gets it. But we're going, no, no, this train is still moving, or we can insert a running reference. We'll come back around for you, or let's say school bus. This school bus has to keep going, but we will come back for you.
Yep.
Because if we find ourselves just remaining stopped at a place, then it's gonna be very hard to make progress. But we're like, we're gonna keep going. We'll come back. We won't leave anyone behind. Can't afford to. 'Cause it's not
Yeah.
just about us, right? So I would say the challenges I mentioned are tough. And we see different things that happen that go, oh, we could celebrate some progress here, but then, oh, there's this, okay, we felt like we made 3 steps forward. Now we got to take 2 steps back. And we still keep moving anyway. The last thing I'll say in terms of challenges, we released baseline research last year. And this research for us was our opportunity to go, let's really understand where we are as an industry in order to know where we're going in terms of the RIDC mission. And for one of the 3 studies, it was related to the diversity of business. And so the one thing I want to highlight for you is of the companies that responded, 70% of those companies said DEI goals are important. But then 59% of those don't track those
Wow.
goals. So we're saying one thing and may or may not be doing another thing. And so that's why the unite the industry is in our mission for a reason. Because we're like, we can't have you over here doing this great, making progress, you over here not doing anything. And so
Yeah.
for us, accountability looks like let's
Wow.
let's lay it all on the table. And that
Yeah.
that can be a challenge, but we have to really look under the hood to really see what we need to do here. I know it's a long
That's
answer.
I don't know, but to be honest, with corporations or with people, we talked about this last week, optics versus reality. Reality is we need to go deep. You can't just say you want something. How are you working towards it? And like you said, these corporations, are they tracking how they are helping to make this an inclusive industry? Because I go to industry events and there's just not enough representation from what America truly looks like. And that's changing, but it also the industry giants have a big role to play. So it sounds like the RDC has the ear of some of them.
Absolutely, because this is a shared responsibility. We will
Mhm.
t- we This is a shared responsibility. So our membership is a mixture of you got Brooks, New Balance, Saucony, REI, Patagonia, New York Roll Runners, a handful of retailers, because it takes all of us. And we have our run clubs, we have some media partners or some freelancers. And what we stress is that this is a shared responsibility, and we are going to be the ones to hold us all accountable.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that it's also the momentum of the train or of the runner. The movement is going to keep going, but it's also going to keep an eye on every single person. So what else is coming up for the RIDC? Any
Yeah, so Run the Block, right? About that
Yeah.
already. So we're super excited about that because when we talk about ownership, we're talking about generational wealth. We're talking about shifting someone's entire. That's what we're really excited about. We are a small but mighty team. We probably to the
Yeah.
post probably looks like we have so many departments and so many teams, but we don't. However, in addition to this ownership piece, employment is the other big area for us this year. And so you'll see that we are hosting a career summit It's called Find Your Path Running Industry Career Summit. We are hosting it in Charlotte, North Carolina, in partnership with Harry's Store. And
Awesome.
we are also launching a new careers page on our website. So you're actually the first to hear this.
Oh,
So
wow.
for us, we've shared industry jobs from our members in our newsletter, and with this 65% open rate every month, a lot of people go see what jobs are available to them in the industry. And so we know that especially our BIPOC community, they look to us like, is this a place I should work for? What are they doing over there? Are they actually committed to what RADC stands for? And so our opportunity, we're not just another job platform, but we are one where you can go, okay, they are working in partnership with the RADC. So I trust that the environment I'm going into reflects that. So we're really excited about the ownership and employment initiatives we're doing this year.
That's really cool. So next week, we're going to get to hang out in person. This is so cool.
Yep.
First, we're going to do the podcast. Then we're going to get to spend 4 days or so together in St. Louis. So let's tell everyone about Run Summit and the Running Industry Association, the RIA, and how RIDC is going to be there.
Yeah. So the RIA, they have been community members of the RIDC since inception. Terry and team, they come to our workshops and educational trainings. They share our resources in their newsletter to the retailers who are members there. And so every year they have this summit, formerly Runchella. And so for this year, we're excited. Well, let me take a step back. Last year, we hosted a panel and it was comprised of different retail members who are part of the RIDC. And one of our research leads was the moderator of that panel. And that I know you were there last
I
year.
was there. Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
and so that was an incredible opportunity for us. While us as a staff weren't there, how do we make sure that we are still spreading the education, the training, and resources that are needed in spaces like the Runchella RA Summit? And so we've gotten great feedback. They invited us back again this year. And this year, there's going to be some small group discussions. And so we're a part of helping what some of those discussions will look like, rooted in store makeup, access, inclusion, visibility. What does it look like for people to come into the store to feel welcome, to feel seen, to feel supported? What are some of the nuances we may have to consider as it relates to a BIPOC customer? I'll give you a small example because I was just watching the podcast Club Shay Shay and Amanda Seals' podcast interview last night. And there's so much nuance there. But one example that came to me in a conversation with a friend is, okay, in the retail shop, you may have this list of things that go when a customer comes in, you acknowledge. Maybe a minute later, you ask them what they need. Maybe another 2 minutes go by, you ask them something else. And so for us, we go, that's a great way to make sure that the customer doesn't feel abandoned or that they're not seen. But then let's say maybe for some people of color to get that much follow up in a few minutes, you're thinking, am I being followed? Why is
Mm.
someone continuing to act, right? So these types of nuances, where are we having these types of conversations, right? So the RIDC wants to create them because it's important to have this context when we're talking about who we serve. So that's what we're doing at RIA next week.
Awesome. I'm so excited to hang out with you there and support everything you guys are doing because Harry has been such a dear friend to us for the last
Right.
year. And meeting him and seeing how warm, and I said to him last week, your energy introduces yourself before you do. And same
Oh.
with you. You're so warm. I can tell that I just want to go up and hug you and just like,
Yeah, we'll
what
hug.
I want to go for a run with you, although I won't be able to yet. I'm recovering from a surgery, but I will run with you someday. I wanted to talk about Earth Day, which was earlier this week. And the mission of Sneaker Impact is to reduce waste and create economic opportunity for developing communities and countries with used footwear. What are your thoughts on those topics?
Yeah. So the beauty in what we factor in intersectionality, right? So if we're talking about running, we also have to think about environmental racism or environmental injustice. We talk about providing, let's say, gently used shoes to be able to offer them to different communities. You're gonna think about, okay, what about communities in inner city or in neighborhoods where they don't necessarily have a run specialty shop or can't afford the shoes? And so this past Earth Day, we actually highlighted an incredible nonprofit called Renew Earth Running. And there's a mixture of indigenous leaders as part of that organization that are really helping people understand the lands that they run on. It is not just about I'm running down this street in this city, but who was here before us? And how do we see running as medicine or as some of the ways
Mm,
that our indigenous people and communities view running and
mhm,
our relationship to the planet? And so that's how the RIDC, again, educational nonprofit, we go, this
mm,
is a really important topic. And we have to add this into this context when we're talking about sustainability, being kind to the planet, taking some less,
recycling.
yeah, things like recycling, things like that. For us, we are seeing what's being done by organizations that truly center this
Yeah.
sustainability, that it is core to their mission. And we help share that throughout our efforts as well.
Okay, cool. Now I want to get into the next subject, which is some of your favorite things as a runner. What is your favorite shoe?
My favorite shoe, I will say, is a stability shoe. I can't
Okay.
say that I have a particular brand because I run in a good amount of them. And so a very colorful stability shoe is what I would choose.
How about gear? What type of gear do you wear when you run in Philadelphia?
Yeah, I have to do either if I do leggings or shorts, they have to have pockets. Come on. They have to have
Mhm.
not just the small pocket in the back. I want like actual pockets on the sides. So I always gravitate to those bottoms when I'm going out for a run. My Garmin,
Yeah.
I can't not have my Garmin watch. It's so funny, even when I get dressed up at night and I wanna put on a gold or silver, I'm like, "Ooh, but I wanna also keep my Garmin on." But
Get you.
the Garmin watch, always having that on me. I have my headphones. I gotta listen to sometimes it's music, but mostly it's either a podcast or some type of
Mm,
storytelling. That if I'm running by myself, it still feels like I'm running with someone. What else? I'm like looking I was on a run this morning, but I was on the treadmill. So I would say
did you use nutrition while you run?
when I do long distance, so I haven't done long distance in a little bit. I'm in my building back up phase right now.
Mhm,
And so right now I haven't, but I love me some goose. I will
mhm.
say that those different flavors are really good.
What about a recovery meal? What do you love after a nice run to reward yourself?
After a run, I have to have a protein shake. I quickly do that before I think about, okay, what do I want to eat?
Mhm.
So I do, it's like a pea protein, 30 grams of protein in it. I put some fruit in it. That is instant happiness for me because then I'm not really thinking about how my body feels because at that point it's okay. We're getting some recovery. After that, something light, like, I don't think to have something heavy, maybe it's like a rice bowl, like something
Yep.
where there's some rice, some sweet potatoes, some broccoli, and some other veggies inside.
Mhm.
I'm a tempeh girl, although I just started enjoying some steak, and some chicken here and there.
Yeah.
Um but that's pretty much it. At least right now, again, in my rebuilding phase, I think once I get back up to my long distances, you ask me that again, I'm trying it all. I'm testing it all. I'm using them all. Using them all.
Do you see yourself running for many years? Are you a lifelong runner? Are you going to keep doing the marathon? Are you going to focus more on the ultra marathon? Are you going to go travel the world? Are you going to specifically target any big city marathons like Chicago or New York?
I want to ask you that question too. That's a great question. For me, would like to do one more marathon. The marathon has to be a moment, like a one decision at a time for me, that distance. I would like to do one more marathon and see progress from my 2016 marathon. Right now, I'm enjoying the shorter distance for various reasons, but when I go on the trails, I'm playing and I lose track of time. So I also am liking going back to the casual because then
Mhm.
I'm in my curiosity state, not necessarily, oh, I have to get this
Slower
PR.
pace. Yeah.
So I think I'll eventually get back there because again, I want to do a marathon again, maybe in the next 2 years. But right now, I'm really enjoying the 5K. It's also really good for me because when we think about who currently runs, I know sometimes we go, there's so many people of color, Black people are winning these races. When you think about like in the US, there are not many people of color in the long distance. And there are
Mm-mm.
not many like people of color in the US in long distance.
What are the recent statistics like for distance runners? Because everyone thinks of sprinters. You're right with the Olympics, but what about the distance community, 5K and up? Do you know any statistics on people of color being
So
involved?
I don't know statistics offhand, but what we see
Yeah.
when you go to a 5K or you go to a 10 miler, that's a very different view than when you go to a marathon, and then even an ultra marathon, right?
Oh,
So
sure.
you get from the number of people who participate. So there's this number of people who participate and then the makeup of people who participate. In Philadelphia, there is a difference between who's going to show up next week at our Broad Street Run 10 miler that goes
Hmm.
straight down one main street from all kinds of neighborhoods. Going to be different than even who shows up at the half marathon, right? Just 3 more miles.
Wow.
That's just from what you can see. But I'm glad you asked that question about data because when we talk about us doing our research, it's like we have to collect this data. I would love for us to,
Mhm.
and we would love for us to get to a place where we actually can say these numbers. And
Sure.
sometimes we can't force people to do that. No, you can't force, but you can ask. You can
But
ask.
then it's got to be like, again, the 99%, the 1% almost, where as a runner myself, I've seen I have many Black running friends in Miami, not as many in Wisconsin where I'm from, but so the representation of Miami is much better, I would say, overall than in
Right.
Madison, Wisconsin, where I was born, even though Madison's a diverse city. But I just I see my friend who's a Haitian ultra runner. He's a pioneer down here in that. In the ultra running scene, there might only be one Black person or person of color out of hundreds at a race.
Right.
Or so I'm sure the support amongst, if there's another person of color there, must be so strong just because like they understand each other so well. And so
Exactly.
that's the beautiful thing too, I think, for this community that's emerging. And I am seeing a growth in it as a race director and a timer. I time 5Ks every weekend and I've done 45 marathons, and in certain places, I did the Bahamas Marathon. You do see good 20 to 50% of people of color. Or
Yeah,
Jamaica, I did the Jamaica Reggae Marathon and half marathon. But in the US and regionally, there is a lot of room for growth. And
exactly.
also in the magazines, and also this is one of we're getting towards the end here, but as a Black woman, how have you seen the industry changing?
Yeah. So, first of all, you just slide past, you did 45 marathons. Wow. Okay. That is,
That's why I got foot surgery. Yeah. And
uh,
I'm 45.
wow. Okay. All right. So you're gonna heal. So you can add more under your belt.
Yes.
Um,
I want to run when I'm 100,
oh,
pain
I
free.
love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You To go back to that, you asked that too as part of that last question. And I want to keep running. I want to keep running. I would love to make sure that I can, if I want to go for a 2 mile, I can do that no problem. If
Hmm.
I want to do a half marathon, I would love to do that no problem. If my body has other plans, can I at least just do it for leisure, just for fun? I would love to be able to do that.
Yep.
To this final question, there's a couple of things that's coming up for me. One, you mentioned as a Black woman in this sport, but also working in this industry. And when we tie it to the point about research, there is just this mix of quantitative and qualitative data that we need and storytelling of lived experiences that we need when we are talking about how do we move this industry along. There's this quantitative piece from my research showed that the US is growing to be majority BIPOC by either what 2040, 2050. And so for us, we're going, well, how can the industry remain relevant to this group? Because right now we've got more work that we need to do. We can't just rest on our, laurels about who's running, who our consumers are. There are consumers who age out, and then there are some that are coming and they look different than the last generation. And so, how are we going to remain relevant? What are we going to do to create access and opportunities? Then, from this qualitative perspective, when I go and run in my neighborhood and a Black woman or a group, or it could be anybody, and a lot of times it's older people, they're going, "You go!" They are cheering me
Yeah.
on. And because
Exactly.
it's showing up for the races, or they seeing it in their neighborhood and they're
Hmm.
going, they can't help themselves. They want to cheer you on. And what a gift it is for us to be the example that we wanted to see. And now we can be that for someone else. And so there are an incredible amount of groups, but also individuals who are also championing this work. It's whether they are activists and they have books out, or they are leading their run clubs and they're partnering with different brands. I, the beauty, again, in our unique position in the industry of uniting the industry, we get to see it all, right? So some of us might only see the retail side of the impacts that are happening, some only the brand. And for us, we see it all. And so I would say I'm in an incredibly unique position to fight for what we need in terms of the data we're seeing and where this country is going, but also what I want myself, my future children, this next generation to see and have available to them that I may have not had.
Yeah, that's a good point, that there's a lot of people out there championing it, and that this is going to be passed down to future generations. Like, also, have you seen and appreciated the work of, I'm sure Kevin Hart is someone that I've noticed trying to make a big impact and I don't know if he's reaching out specifically to BIPOC or just as a comedian and as a celebrity. He's championing the 5K and Run With Me. And then there's people like David Goggins with no excuses doing the 100 milers and saying, don't make any excuses. And you just got to be disciplined and go hard, stay hard. You know what I mean? So you see a lot of different voices. Today, we got to hear your voice, which is so refreshing and uplifting. I'm just really grateful that we got to have this conversation today, and we're going to continue in the future.
I love those examples you just mentioned of Kevin Hart and David Goggins, and now you like my voice and Harry's. And it's going to take all of our voices, right? And we can't be everything to everyone, right?
Yeah.
I can listen to maybe 2 minutes of David Goggins and then I'm done. I don't listen to the full thing. And I have close friends who need that first in order to then move forward. And that's fine. Yeah, I think we
Mhm.
take what we need, leave what we don't. For Kevin Hart, I was one of his pacers. This was many years ago when he did a 5K with Nike in Philly, and I was one of the pacers. And again, I think the using your platform to inspire people to move their bodies, I thought that was great. I saw the different representation that he was able to bring out, the different body sizes, all
Mhm.
of them. And so whether it's a big influencer like that, or, folks like me and Harry who are influencers in our own right, in our own communities, all of that matters. 45, I'm like, you know what? Now I can definitely do too.
Mhm.
Right? You
Yeah.
know?
I also wanted to mention two women that have inspired me over the years as a runner. First is Oprah Winfrey when she did a marathon, and she showed that any woman of any body type can do a marathon and that it's doable. You can even go out and power walk, or you can do a run walk method. And then also Serena Williams, I was fortunate enough to work with her about 10 years ago, and her sister Venus, and also Al Roker. They all came down, and a couple other celebrities too. We put on this race in South Beach called the Serena Williams Live Ultimate Run. It was a
Wow.
5K and 10K, and I got to work with Serena. And for her, it was more of a challenge to do a 10K, and she's a very powerful tennis player. But I got to stand next to her a couple times and play a couple board games with her once or twice after a race. And I was just so impressed because she was someone I grew up idolizing,
Mhm.
and my mom as well idolizing, as well as Martin Luther King and so many other leaders in our community throughout our history as a nation. And so to work next to Serena and to see her promote the run for people in Compton, for students in Compton to help with inner city violence, and also to help get computer labs in Africa. It just shows that it's going to take 1,000 Kiera Smalls because it's a big need. And that's what we have, people like Serena and also Oprah that are putting the word out there too, so there's so many. But the RIDC is something I really wanted to shine a huge spotlight on today with our audience, because it is just really cool that you guys are getting all the support you're getting, and that the community is finally seeing and recognizing and making a change. Because I think people were slightly aware for the last 20 years, but there just wasn't a big change. And now there's starting to be bigger changes, deeper discussions, smaller group settings. People can be vulnerable. They can admit if they don't know much.
Yeah.
Like, I grew up in more of a sheltered community in Wisconsin, in a suburb, and I didn't have a Black friend until I was in sixth grade. And I
Mhm.
only had 2 or 3 Black friends until I was in college. And they were only 1 or 2 or 3 in my entire high school. There weren't a lot of Black children that I was raised around. But now in Miami, I'm hyper exposed, which is
Mhm.
great. and traveling the world for marathons, going to Jamaica, Guatemala, and all these great countries, that running is international. And it's also part of being human, is just expressing yourself and having an outlet of exercise.
Yeah.
So it's just so cool to see the RIDC really helping to change America, the United States. And I really want it to be featured on every cover and every big talk show, from Good Morning America to every single one. I want to see you on the Joe Rogan show, so it's all these big platforms.
I love that. We were actually, it's funny, we were featured on Peloton. Bex, she does the marathon trainings and she does the tread running. And for Global Running Day last year, she shouted out the RIDC and our efforts and for people to learn more. And so shout outs to her. And I love this. Thank you for saying all of that. Thank you for sharing that. Hearing these stories is just a reminder of the importance of sharing stories like this, because at the root of it is access, right? And exposure for everybody. So access and exposure for white individuals who may not have been around a person of color until they became an adult even. And for a lot of people, that's true. And so how do we navigate that without shame and without guilt? But hey, this is a part of where some of your gaps or missteps are, right? And then this, I love this, the 5K with Serena and some of the challenges that it was combating, because yeah, these are real challenges in communities that prevent us from thinking about going out for a run or shopping. But
You
we
know?
have to
Yeah.
bridge intersectionality and bridge these gaps. So
Yeah.
it takes more than a pair of shoes, right? So I
Everyone.
love the sneaker impact news. That's the impact that we're talking about. This is
Yeah, it's more than just recycling. It's the voice of our communities, people's stories. It's inspiring others to get involved and to take a leap of faith, which I can see that you did. And so we're coming up on 1 hour, but before we close out, I wanted to ask you about hope and about your vision of what you define as the word love and hope in the world, what keeps you going every day, an inspiring message to leave to our audience about.
Hmm. So hope. I think about, I share this often, that there is a James Baldwin quote that I love and that guides me. And it is, we have to be as clear-headed about humans as possible because we are still each other's only hope.
Wow.
And when I think about that, when I think about the challenges we talked about, when I think about the opportunities we're creating that we talked about, all of this is to help our neighbors, right? All of this is to help each other while we're here and to make things a little bit better for the people that come after us. And what a gift that I get to do that right now through the RIDC. And I think running is this incredible tool that really positively impact your mental health, your physical health, your financial wealth, depending on how you participate in it. And so many people don't know about this, or they don't know how to see themselves participating. So we have this incredible opportunity to ensure that hope gets to the right people. And now.
So the RDC is this amazing platform, and it in itself embodies hope. I love that. And the
Yeah.
people behind it are just breathing hope into it, and the community around it. So excited to hang out with you next week in person. And Sneaker Impact, you can count on us always by your side. How can people learn more about you, stay connected, and follow the RIDC?
Before I share that, Bryan the Botanist, I want to thank you for inviting me to your podcast. Your prep game is elite.
Uh,
And I felt super taken care of leading up to. I knew exactly what
mm,
we were getting into, not necessarily the questions, but I love that we both were open to let's let it flow. Let's just have a
mhm.
conversation. And so thank you for allowing RDC to have this platform and myself.
First of all, you're too kind. I was a little flustered this morning because life sometimes throws challenges at us, and that's the hero's journey. Everyone is on the hero's journey, and we have to be patient. And you were very patient when I was adjusting my lighting at my home here because I'm recently had another medical procedure. But I was asking, how can people stay connected and learn more? I know you have an Instagram I'm going to provide, but share a couple of links.
Yes. Okay. Especially like, how do you all stay connected with the RADC? So, number one, our website is super easy, runningdiversity.com. And on that website, we really spend a lot of time making sure that it's user friendly. It gives you all that you need. There's a tab with a bunch of resources, all of our workshops that we've done, all of we have a list of 25 plus BIPOC podcasts that exist and running. We also just have all of our programs and other efforts on that site. And then on social media, we are at Running Industry Diversity Coalition on LinkedIn and Facebook, and then at Running Diversity on Instagram. And I would love to connect with people on LinkedIn. And it's my name, Kiera Smalls.
Awesome. I'm going to share all those links and I'm going to do some more video with you in St. Louis next week. Anything you guys ever need from Sneaker Impact, please reach out because we want to support the RIDC as one of our favorite nonprofits out there doing great work in the world.
Thank you.
So
Yeah, we want more members to join us. So this is fantastic. So happy to
awesome.
how to become a member of the RIDC.
Well, again, it was just a really fun morning with you to get to know you and share the story of the RIDC. So thank you so much for your time, Kiera.
Thank you for having me. It's great meeting you, Bryan, and I'll see you in person next week.
Absolutely. All right. Bye, guys.